Well, our panel discussion for this evening, Bridging the Fault Lines, How to Re-Engineer India Inc., is especially significant. Mr. Josie Pulintharathal is going to be moderating the panel. He's a managing editor at Business Today. Josie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Minister Sharma. Mr. Sharma was just telling me that he's had back-to-back 7 days, Mr. Sharma, after Bali came back and then directly to South Africa and back this afternoon. Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Sharma. I want to call the other panelists on stage very quickly so that we are running a little late and we want to try and keep time. Can I ask Chandra to come on stage, please? N. Chandrasekaran, CEO of Tata Consultancy Services. India's most valuable company. Thanks, Chandra. Naina Kidwai, Country Manager for HSBC in India. Thank you, Naina. Wonderful. And Malvinder Singh, Chairman of Fortis Group. One of our other panelists, Rajendra Pawar, couldn't make it. There's been a small accident at home, so he couldn't make it. But if Rajendra Pawar had come, and those of you who don't know Rajendra Pawar, he's a chairman of NIIT group of companies, I would say I know why the Gillette stock is doing so badly. 3 out of 4 men on this panel have facial hair. Gillette can't be doing any better. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Mr. Sharma, I want to kind of dive straight in with you. Not about facial hair, but about the WTO negotiations. This is perhaps your first public appearance in India after Bali. Tell us what it was like to be there. There have been long kind of negotiations elsewhere in WTO history as well, but nothing as fruitful as what happened in Bali. Please give us what happened there.
Well, let me at the outset convey my thanks to Arun for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. And thank you, Arun, also for your very generous introduction and appreciation. But you all have been following Bali, whether Naina, Chandrasekaran, Malvinder, and all of you. Normally people go there for holiday or honeymooning. We didn't go for that. See, this was not meant to be originally a negotiating ministerial round, but as it happens, the political call is normally taken at the ministerial. So there were 3 pillars which were important. One was trade facilitation. Second was LDC package for the least developed countries. And third was the public stock holding for food security. Now there was some movement, I'll say, with the support of all of us on LDC package. And these issues are not new issues. These issues go back to 2005 Hong Kong ministerial. Just to tell you that these are flowing out of that. But they took 8 years even to reach anywhere. And the WTO per se was founded or established almost 19 years ago. And there have been 8 ministerials which were non-productive. So it became critical to ensure that the centrality of the WTO as an organization in a rule-based multilateral trading system is retained. So that's why it became a crucial ministerial. There were pre-negotiated texts, but as they say that there were issues unresolved. Many of the things which were written or commented upon during that period, the build-up and the ministerial, which was the longest incidentally, it got extended into the 7th day, were correct or some were speculative. India was never opposed to trade facilitation. There were certain issues where the laws of the country were to be amended, or where we had to take a political call, and I needed a mandate from the cabinet that we could go that far. But I would like to set at least this issue clearly. that India has taken on its own number of measures to facilitate trade, to bring down transaction costs, for faster clearances, for customs cooperation, e-enabling the system, electronic data interchangeability. There are a number of things which are part of the package, but India has already done. 2009 foreign trade policy, when we announced it, this was one of the objectives which was made clear by us, to make our industry and our exports globally competitive, which because of the transaction costs they are not. Number two was the issue of the LDCs, though I'll not say that what they wanted has been given. But India could at least stand up and speak, because India had, on its own, implemented the LDC part, the duty-free, quota-free market access, opening up 86% of our market, these tariff lines in 2008. Now what we have done before Bali, we have taken it to 98.2 of our tariff lines to give the market access to LDC. The real issue which came up was an India-led proposal, which was part of G33, but it was attributed to us, and rightly so, because we were spearheading it. That was on food security. Now this is something which is important for us to ensure a horizontal balance at Bali. Otherwise, if the balance was not there, and if the developmental dimension was not reflected, the very mandate of the DDA, the Doha Development Agenda, would have been lost. So it was a critical issue. Just to sum it up, it was, yes, difficult. There were tense and intense negotiations. Positions were made. But we were clear about one issue. It was not something to be negotiated when it comes to food security right of poor people in developing countries. And India had insisted, even when as a last-minute compromise, the grandfathering or India could get a carve-out. I had refused, and we had made it clear that we stand on principles that it should be made available to all the developing countries. And its question is not of only of subsidies, certainly not. I do not know how many of you are aware, the entire calculation of de minimis as to what you can procure as legitimate procurement of your food stocks is based on external reference price of 1986 to 1988. And I made it very clear that in 2013, in the month of December, I cannot negotiate on the basis of prices which are 29 years old, and WTO, to have credibility, must move to the 21st century. We have ensured that.
Minister, what did we have to give up, so to say? What's in it for the other side? What did we have to give in something to get the food security and everything else?
No, as I said, there were three pillars.
Right.
And India has also cooperated.
Right.
But this is the first harvest of the DDA and the first deal, if you may call it, of the WTO since the WTO was formed. That's the positive thing, is that it will definitely enhance trade, create confidence, and in the coming years, as it is being said, that 1 trillion would be added to the global trade, create opportunities, create jobs, help businesses, and also at a time when there has been gloom and despair, it is a very positive message which collectively we have been able to give. And why it is important, that what India was doing, we were able to put together very deftly a coalition of Africa, Latin America and Caribbean along with us, because ranged against us were, on this issue, US, EU and China together. And that's why it became fairly complex, but we are grateful to all countries, and eventually even to those who had a different perspective, because finally an outcome is there, a positive outcome, a balanced outcome, when there is a consensus reached. So I'm equally grateful for those who were disagreeing with us, that finally we reached an understanding. But in particular, our gratitude is to those countries who believed in India, that India will not bargain for itself and stand on principles.
Wonderful. Like Mr. Puri said, like Mr. Puri said, congratulations, Minister, on the Bali visit. Let's dive straight into our topic today. I mean, I couldn't resist asking about Bali because it's so much, so important for the economy. But let's just get into the topic that we have today, bridging the fault lines, how to re-engineer India Inc. How do we bridge the fault lines? How do we fix the fault lines in the economy so that we can kind of re-engineer India, the Indian economy, Indian corporates in the year ahead? Let me start with you, Naina. Put it in context for us. You are at you're helming FICCI. Put it in context for us how bad the situation today is. Sure, the economy is growing at half what it was growing about 3.5 years ago, but some would argue, hey, it's still 4.5%. So how bad is it from the corporate perspective?
But before I respond to you, I want to just also add my voice to the tremendous feat India achieved under Minister Sharma at the WTO. It was just, to my mind, it did show the centrality of India to the rest of the world. WTO would have failed without us, and what we have succeeded in achieving is a balanced response to what many of us developing countries need. So, a phenomenal outcome, sir. It's the first time I'm seeing you since you're back. Congratulations. Okay, so how bad is it? We are fortunate in that certainly on the agricultural front, we have what looks like good monsoon, good outcomes. We also have the good fortune of exports over the last 4 months. It's waned a bit the last month, but still looking, the trajectory anyway, looking positive. Some great numbers on the current account deficit, down from 4.8 to 1.8, which means we would end the year at 3%. So that, through timely action, has actually yielded good result. The worry, to my mind, is the fisc, because it looks like we would achieve the 4.8, the red lines that the Ministry of Finance or the Minister of Finance set out. But frankly, I worry about next year, where the revenue numbers are down and the outlays are in fact going to continue at a pretty high level. Having said that, I think in the sort of immediate GDP sort of growth numbers, it's, I would say, looks like, I just heard the governor say a number of 4.5 to 5. So the 4.5 worries me, but I would have said 5. Next year, 6 and then 7. So the trajectory is certainly one that goes up. But the near term still looks quite tough, quite slow, green shoots emerging, but the worry is that we don't stay the course at a time when indeed we can and must push the needle forward as we go ahead.
Right. If you had a wish list of things that the government should do, or perhaps the regulatory agency should do, RBI or elsewhere, what would those be? What would be those 3 things on your wish list?
So if you look at the immediate term, I mean, I think just applying a reality check, I think the easier stuff in a way is getting the large projects that are stuck out of the way. It doesn't require parliament. These are much more about execution on the ground. The government's covered very good ground in terms of the Cabinet Committee of Investments having sorted through those projects, but we need to drill down, make sure that they see their clearance and indeed come back into production, which will often require state-level intervention, and in some cases, in fact, those processes have still not come out of the ministries. So I think getting those projects off becomes very key. Multiply dividends through power projects, which would actually kick into production, but also gets the NPAs of banks down. A second one, which looks a little harder because it requires parliamentary sort of endorsement, is the GST. But the goods and service tax, by all indication, gives a 2% kicker into the economy. And it is a shame that we have not been able to get through that because of what I would say is a lot of political positions, which should have really worked much better in terms of a consensus to move forward on something that is so critical for India. How many reforms can you think that would add 2% to the GDP of your country?
Absolutely.
And why would you not allow that to go through? So I think that one I don't give up on. It's still moving ahead despite elections and all of that. But whether we will actually achieve what should be the right conclusion in time is a worry. I think what we also have to, of course, look at is the things that stopped, and those should be and continue to be addressed today. The institutions which in fact create the right environment for resource allocation, particularly scarce resource allocation, whether spectrum or land or now coal and mineral resources. We do need to get that institutional framework sorted out, because we swung from a go-go environment where everything was possible to a no-go environment. And we absolutely need to have a central ground where things work with the right environmental checks and balances, but also are allowed to go ahead. So much to be done, and I don't think we have the time to stop. So I do hope that we can doggedly ensure that we continue to do what needs to happen.
If I were a headline writer in a pink newspaper, I would say, Naina Lal Kidwai says, forget 2014.
Forget.
2014, that's...
I'm saying quite the contrary. I'm saying that we as citizens of this country, as corporate India, must not allow 2014 to be written off.
Okay.
And we have to continue to insist that what needs to be done must get done. And not all of it requires the politics of India. A lot of it is to do with execution on the ground, from bureaucrats who are being paid to do their job, and from people who are still in position. So why can't we see that rightful conclusion? We must not give up. The difference between where we are today and a credit rating, which would be really crappy, lies in 2014.
Right.
So we have to get this done.
Right. Thanks, Anand. Before I come back to Mr. Sharma for his views from the government from a lawmaker perspective, let me just go on to Chandra. Chandra, tell us the view from Bombay. What does corporate India from Bombay see this entire stasis in the economy? Now, it doesn't affect your company terribly, but how do you see it?
I think it's not about whether 4.5% or 5% or 6% is a good growth rate or not. I think it is about what the opportunity is. I think it's fair to say, or at least to my mind, I don't think there is any other country in the world which has the opportunity and the potential that India has. If not, we are number one, we are up there, right up there. Every single industry we operate in, there's a huge potential. We've got abundant talent. We've got natural resources. But somehow we are not exploiting, and we've got to figure out how we can go after our potential. I don't think that I want to comment on whether 2014 is going to be 4.8%, 6.4%. It doesn't matter. In an overall scheme of things, 2 quarters here, 2 quarters there, doesn't matter, because we are talking about a nation which has got huge potential. So how do we take it forward on a continuous basis, get better every day in everything we do, and why not 15%?
Sure.
I mean, you can ask 2 different ways. The question can be asked in 2 different ways. One is, what is some unreasonable target that we can put, and then start to build? How do we achieve that number? The other way to look at it is, let's look at agriculture. Let's take productivity. I mean, everything we do, there is a huge opportunity for productivity. I mean, agricultural productivity, I think we just don't compare with the West, right? So if you, on the one hand, you can say that agriculture sector has done well, but if we address the productivity issue, I mean, it can be significant. That alone can be 6-7%. So similarly, manufacturing sector, exports, and look at the imports. Do we really need to import all the things that we are importing?
Certainly not electronics.
So given all that, I think we need to think ourselves as a collective group. I don't think that these things should change irrespective of the government. It is not the government alone. It's the government, opposition parties, the society, the business people, corporates. I think we have got to have an ecosystem, and there are certain things we all must agree. It must not change, irrespective of, there has to be a bare minimum growth program. That should not change.
So, Chandra, all of what we're talking about is, in a sense, truism, right? I mean, we need to improve productivity in agriculture, we need to think collectively, etc. Why is it not happening?
So I think there are two or three things I can talk about. I think always, in any one of these things, what are the 5 things the government must do? You can always make a list. You can say infrastructure, you can say agricultural productivity, you can say education, we need to skill our people better. You can go on and on. But fundamentally speaking, I think we need to have a clarity in policy. And it's not that policies are not getting made. Many times we are not spending enough time. And as a result, the analysis is not complete. And then we start interpreting the policies differently, whether it's tax laws, it's any other policies. So that actually is a drag. Many times drag is not the speed. Right. It's not a lack of speed. It's just the blocks you have in front of you. I think we need to do that. Second thing is execution. We need to pick 2 or 3 things that we want to do, and we can't do everything, even though we are a large nation, and we can't do everything at the same time. So maybe we have to design our priorities. Certain things have to go on a super priority, certain things have to go on a lower priority, but everybody has to align.
Right. A question which Minister Sharma will be having some interest in your answer. What about exports? How is it looking for your company, the world economy? Do you see a kind of uptick in demand for what you are doing and what other exporters are doing in this country in the year ahead or the year after that?
I think the technology sector has a huge potential because there are many things going on at the same time. The first thing is the innovation that is happening in the technology sector is faster than ever before. The number of products that you have seen and the success of those products in the last 4 years at the height of financial crisis is just mind-boggling. And second thing is, in every business, there is a need to adapt to these technologies. Whether you want to drive productivity, or you want to drive growth, or whether you want to drive innovation. I call this the phenomena of digital reimagination. And the last 12 months, the digital consumer space alone has generated an economic activity of $200 billion. I believe that in the next 5 years, the global opportunity is at least $5 trillion.
$5 trillion?
Yeah. So I think there's enormous amount of activity that's going to happen, and I think we have to do the right things. We've got to understand each industry, we've got to understand each customer, we've got to come up with the right solutions, right co-creation, right innovation. So many things we need to do right, but there's enormous opportunity. And by the way, there is an enormous opportunity in India.
Mr. Sharma, let me come to you. Give us the government view on what's been just talked about and maybe the lawmaker perspective. I know that you pushed very hard for retail in the past, multi-brand in retail. We are seeing some signs of that bearing fruit, though maybe it will happen more likely more in 2014 or 2015. But okay, earlier. All right, thank you. But tell us the bird's eye view from the government's perspective of what is happening. Why the stasis in the economy? Why is everything kind of stuck up? We know the answers, but we don't seem to be going after them.
Let me give you both the perspective of the government and my own understanding of the situation. The India story we all believe in, and the world believed in us. But in recent years, there have been unfortunate developments which have created an environment of suspicion and distrust, where decision-making and governance both have become difficult, where every decision is made suspect, where every signature gets questioned, then the delays are bound to be there. And the fallout, the entire economy has to pay for it. This is exactly what has gone wrong when you're talking of the fault lines. It's not a simplistic answer which I can give you, but only to say that we have to re-engineer also the government processes, leveraging technology, what Chandrasekaran was saying, to ensure that the expectations or aspirations of the Indian industry are met, Delays are cut out. When there is a red tape, when there is a delay, there are bound to be suspicion, there are bound to be allegations. The only way to remove that is to create an ecosystem using the technology which ensures faster approvals and restores the confidence. There have also been issues of corporate ethics which have been debated in public. Some issues do merit attention. Some issues may not have been as bona fide when it comes to a controversy as it is being made out to be. We have to, therefore, as I say, restore that environment where there is trust, where there is confidence, because there cannot be a greater damage done if the morale of a nation is undermined and where positive steps taken or decisions which are in the interest of the economy are trapped in partisan politics. We are not the only ones. It has happened to the biggest economy, where even the expenditure from the exchequer could not have taken place, but they barely managed to survive. It has happened here. As Arun was saying about the FDI, I do not know what was wrong. And that's what I asked those who were questioning that when it comes to the investments, whether it is Indian investment or foreign direct investment, it is only the color of the money, but this country does need foreign investment. Because a country which has a current account deficit, a country which has a trade account deficit, historically, because of our dependence on imports. I agree that some of the imports we can do away with, which we must, but overnight we cannot. But some we will still continue to have. Therefore, foreign direct investment is the first and the best source of money coming in, which is for asset creation, which is for increasing productivity, which also brings in technology, creates much needed jobs in the country. The other issue when we are talking about the corporate and the government relationship, there was a time before the liberalization of the opening up of the Indian economy where the political leadership and the business leadership was meant to keep a distance from each other, as the judges are supposed to keep aloof from the society. I don't believe in that. I feel that there has to be a partnership where there is respect, where there is trust in each other, and the inputs of the industry and the entrepreneurs are available to the government in policy formulation. Policy formulation has to be inclusive. It cannot be arbitrary. It has to be transparent and democratic exercise, where all stakeholders feel that they are part of the decision made. Now, we have had a number of decisions. At a time when it was said that there is policy paralysis, this FDI in single brand retail, 100% we made it, and almost $3 trillion of investments have come in that. Every known brand of the world has come here. They'll be manufacturing here. There was a debate about the sourcing requirement. It was important for a big country like India with 1.25 billion people. You have SMEs, you have micro enterprises, you have young entrepreneurs, and they have amazed the world. Their stories are known here and globally. So therefore, our people can also contribute when foreign investors come in. But also civil aviation. Look at the controversies. We opened up and never ending. Similarly, telecom, we have gone up to 100%. Banking reforms. Insurance is still with the parliament. There will be more FDI liberalization. I can say that without giving details. There are some steps that we have in mind and we shall do it. Now, what it has led to? We were tested, as Arun mentioned. Never before in our history, the executive policy decisions have been dragged into not only parliamentary debate, Parliament is supreme, but to a parliamentary vote, which is in conflict with the functioning of Indian parliamentary democracy. The executive space was not respected. And when Parliament voted in favor, it was taken to the judiciary, to the highest court. But finally, we have made it very clear that the compartmentalization in a constitutional scheme of things must be respected. And the executive decisions should not be interfered with. And same goes for governance. If there is daily interference, then officials will be scared to take decisions. And if we do not actually reverse this trend, which has hurt this country, irrespective of what we do, we'll still be losing some percentage points of our GDP to this vitiated environment. I feel, irrespective of who's there, what decisions are made, I agree with what Naina said, that resources, those are national resources, whether it is the allocation of a spectrum, allocation of a coal mine, which is meant for power generation. This country has a huge deficit when it comes to electricity generation, which we have to overcome. It's one part of the infrastructure bottlenecks which India faces. Now, when these allocations are made, there are certain considerations. Some concessions given do get reflected in the power purchase agreements, which we all know. So every such allocation, whether it was in the case of telecom, without going into the merits, what we did, we hurt one of the fastest growing sectors of the Indian industry. It's not only the individual companies or entrepreneurs, it's the huge exposure of the financial institutions and the banks. And the trust was lost. And we then started fixing, out of fear, reserve prices which made the spectrum unsaleable. You cannot say that everything, then when you take a decision now, nobody will bring it down. The moment anybody brings it down, they say that now charge this fellow. Why he has brought it down or she has brought it down. And do you know that the prices which were expected in the so-called notional loss theory were the highest in the world? The prices at which the loss calculation was done, the loss which was never there, our spectrum prices, as per the wisdom of the then Controller Auditor General and the others who lapped it up, and I'd say also without hesitation, there has been judicial overreach in the country too. We have been overreactive, and we have given, on one hand, we need to deregulate. That's why I said, re-engineer the government processes, bring in technology, and remove this environment which prevents decision-making and correct policy-making.
That looks more like reality for some of us, Minister.
No, I'm not saying that. You see, if you look at it, I'm not defending anyone.
Okay.
I've not allocated anyone. But I am being very clear that in a country like India, if you fix a price for an auction, which is 47 times more than the spectrum auction price, say a place like Singapore, the highest price in the world was in Germany, and we were 12 times more than that. So how do you expect businesses to grow? If somebody just arbitrarily fixes a price and then says that if that is not achieved, you have caused a loss to the exchequer, and therefore you are suspect. This is a fundamental issue, and sometimes for development, it's not a question of allocation. Now, the most valuable resource is land. Now, you are building highways. Land will have to be taken. You are building the corridors, industrial corridors. Land will be taken. So, if we do this and go to the extreme, that's what Naina was right. From no-go, from go to no-go.
Right.
So, we have to find the middle ground, which is acceptable, put in place regulatory authorities or bodies which are there, but don't over-regulate also. Don't go back, because over-regulation will lead to corruption, will lead to delays.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. I was saving you for the last, Malvinder, because I know you are this big believer in India and have been kind of walking the talk, literally, in terms of putting money down here. Give us your view. What are you seeing that lots of other businessmen don't seem to be seeing in India and actually kind of writing out the check?
I think really from the way I look at India, and having had the opportunity of running businesses globally in over 125 countries, I personally believe there is no market and no country that provides the opportunity that India provides today.
Here, here.
I think if today we are talking about a GDP growth that's sub 5%, while many of us will complain and crib about it, the reality is that's a huge opportunity. And if we are not going to enter India at this point, I really wonder when you will want to enter India. And from our perspective, it's just not talk. It's just not another Indian businessman standing globally and talking about, look, India is a great place. Because of the belief that I personally have in India, we have actually exited some of our businesses internationally at a profit and brought close to $1 billion back to invest in India in healthcare and in financial services. So I would hope that as you write your headlines and you're asking Naina, what headlines you want, I hope you will write that this panel is actually telling you, ask not what the government can do for you, but ask what you can do for India. And if each of us, in our own respective ways, do something over and above what we've planned to do in this market space, 150 of us sitting here, 1 billion plus people sitting in India, I'm quite certain that 4.5% will certainly exceed 5%, hopefully, and then the 6 and the 7 will come. I think India is clearly a market with huge opportunities, but it comes along with a series of complexities and challenges. And that is the reality. It's not going to change overnight. I think we will have our learnings. We will have the right ones. We'll have the bad ones. But net, what's important is as long as we're evolving and moving ahead. And I think keeping in mind the theme for this panel discussion, from my perspective, there are really 4 things I think we need to focus at. One, it's extremely imperative we get our infrastructure projects, which are close to $150 billion, which are not moving at the pace at which they need to from an execution viewpoint, we try and bring those back on track as early as possible. Second, Minister Sharma has also spoken about some of the additional reforms that he's planning on getting sooner and not going to wait for 14 and 15. Certainly some of them are required and are important for us to be able to enable and to be able to get investment in. And as investment will come, growth capital will come, not only from FDI, but also Indian capital. We have to be able to believe in our own market and put money in. There is huge opportunity for growth, and as we bring investments, jobs will get created, disposable incomes will come, and a consumption pattern will start. And the last 2 things, one is a much stronger governance mechanism, which I think the panel has spoken about. And the last part is keeping in mind the demographics in our country and the demographic dividend we talk about. It's extremely important for us as a country to be focused on skill development and in particular about employability. So if we want to grow as a nation and grow with as much equality and opportunity, we have to make sure those millions of jobs are getting created year after year.
Malvinder, if your board asked you to look at sectors other than healthcare and financial services to put money in, which would be the other growth sectors out there?
I think over the next few years, it's going to be a linked sector, which is on medical education. And the reason we're looking at that over the next few years is because in the healthcare space, there's a huge dearth, not only of healthcare infrastructure, but more importantly of medical talent. So it's, we would need over $40–50 billion purely for the industry to be able to create the infrastructure to be able to reach a stage of being at an average in terms of what healthcare infrastructure across the world will be. That to me personally is a huge challenge. I don't see that kind of investment happening But all of us in the industry are making those investments, and we as a business will be putting in $1 billion in healthcare. But the bigger challenge for us is going to be on skilled manpower. And that is an area where I think as many people can get into medical education, we will be able to bring in doctors, nurses, paramedics, which will then be able to have healthcare which is accessible and affordable closer to the people in the country.
It's perhaps among the most ironic statistic that we have, right? About 1 million people cross the age of 18 every month in this country, and we don't have skilled people coming out there. I mean, we really need to spend people, Chandra's company, your company, Infosys was here earlier, they have to spend millions and millions to kind of skill up people. Okay, I'm going to open up the floor for questions. Please raise your hands and introduce yourself before the question comes, and I'm afraid we have time for just about 2 questions. Can we have the microphone there?
I'm Mohit Saraf. I think everybody talked about great opportunity in India, yes. If you look at our per capita income, we are at $1,700. China is $5,400. Korea is $25,000. So obviously we have a great opportunity. But if you think about it, how long will we talk about opportunity? I think that's the key question. I think the issues of governance, issue about policy, issue about natural resources, how do you allocate that? These are so critical issues that unless we really fix these issues, all these issues will only be an opportunity, and we'll talk about opportunity in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and still grow at 4%. And I think that's the key question to the panel.
Naina, you want to take that? I'll meet you after this. You're cynical enough to be in a newsroom. We should talk.
Right. Well, what can I say except we all share your frustration. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I think we have some of the tools in hand. We don't use them. I think IT is a very big tool, and maybe Chandra should chip in here. But the transparency that IT can bring is something that we have hardly used. I mean, my dream would be if today you barcode every container or truck running around the country, you could barcode every file and know where it's stuck and why, and have it up on the net. You should know exactly where it is and why it's stuck. So we could move to a situation where we bring transparency to work for us. After all, we've given IT to the world. Why can't we give IT to us?
Thank you. Chandra, you wanted to add?
I think 2 comments I want to make. I think we have discussed this enough, and everyone knows what the issues are, what needs to be done. We just have to execute. Okay, as a nation, we just have to execute. But the second answer I would say is that I would not be as frustrated as you are. Okay, I think if you really look back the last 20 years, there are a lot of statistics that you can see where we have also progressed enormously. It's just the pace. The opportunity is so much. The pace at which we are doing is just not good enough. And most of the times the pace is not picking up because we seem to be making the same mistakes again and again. So we just need to, all the things that you talked about, whether it is governance, whether it is policy clarity, or whether it is execution, we just need to do it. I hope we will do that.
Great. There was a question. Yeah.
Hello. Malvinder, my question is to you, a bit away from the topic, but the decision you made a few years ago to move away from your legacy and your family business and go into completely new spaces. I would like to request, I'd like to know what change did you as Malvinder go through, and what made you go through that tipping point to take the decision to move away from the business your father had built and the legacy it left behind, and to take it forward to a new dimension. I'm sure the legacy still exists, but to take it to the new dimensions that you have taken it to. What change did you go through, and what really pushed you to do that?
I think one, if I go back in time, when you were a child and you see your grandfather and father working daily and every single day having one dream, you aspire to have the same dream. And that's the route that I chose as I evolved from a child to a teenager and eventually joined the company. I've enjoyed every bit of that experience. I think it was a great opportunity for me to be able to start as a management trainee and evolve and walk up that ladder to being a CEO and a chairman of that organization. But at the end of the day, one of the learnings that I imbibed from my father was, you must do what you believe is the best in the interest of the company. And there came an opportunity when we were approached by a party to say, look, why don't we combine the two companies, because that way we'll be able to transform the sector. So it was not something that one had thought of, that one wanted to do, but it evolved and came from somebody else as a suggestion, and we walked down that path, and eventually we took a decision for which we believe would be the best interest of the organization, because being a generic player, we didn't really need a partner. But if we wanted to go down the vision from evolving from a generic to an innovator player, I think India is still 20, 30 years out from that to getting into the innovation space. And therefore, we believe that would be in the best interest of the organization. And from my brother and I, we had started, soon after my father passed away, two businesses, one in healthcare and one in financial services. And there were two very clear reasons why we started those. One, we believed in India, and therefore it was the India growth story. Second, we wanted to make a difference to the people of India, and for that we believed healthcare was a huge unmet need in the country, which it still is today. And it was not even a sector, it was not even an industry. There was only one player at that point in time. And we said, we are going to get into it, and we're going to try and make a difference where we'll bring world-class healthcare at an Indian price point to the people. And that's the journey we've been on for the last 12 years. I think we've come a long way, probably more than what we had anticipated, but we have a long way to go. And similarly, in financial services, the perspective was, if India is going to grow, if India is going to become strong, and if India is going to integrate with the world globally, India will need a much stronger backbone. And that backbone, financial services is an integral part of. So those are the two reasons we chose to go down that journey and to be a part of the future of the India growth story.
Okay, I'm afraid we need to wrap. We're running a little late, and Shweta is throwing knives at me. Thanks, Chandra. Thanks, Naina. Thanks, Minister Sharma. Thanks, Malvinder. Pleasure speaking with you guys.